That's my mother. Her most significant accomplishment is Title IX, which forever transformed athletics in America. When the personal and the political collided, people listened.
We do have a national responsibility to speak for the women in the country. No matter how excluded they have been in the past, the individual does count, and we can make an impact.
There was just no stopping her. She wanted to change the whole system. It was a battle down to one vote, my mom's vote.
Patsy Takemoto
Mink.
Hey everybody, I'm Ben Proudfoot, the director of Mink, the short documentary, and I'm so happy to be here with you. Naomi Osaka, our executive producer, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
I see you have your Think Mink shirt on.
Yes.
So I just, I know some of these stories, but I just want to ask you for the benefit of everybody else. I'm curious, what like initially drew you to this story? Do you remember when you first watched it? What piqued your interest about it?
I think for me, my biggest thing is like I love to learn, but not feel like I'm learning. So what drew me to it was that when I was watching the documentary, I felt like a student, which was really cool for me, but I also felt like I was experiencing history, which I think that's exactly what it is. And it was cool for me as an athlete and a woman to just know that, there was such an incredible person fighting for our rights, and she was doing so well against, so many things against her.
Yeah. I that's one of the things that I feel like about Patsy Mink is like, there's so many moments in her life when if you put yourself in her shoes, you're just like, I can't believe that she kept going after all that, like after all that was up against her, like she just kept going. The persistence is crazy. She has an amazing ability to keep going despite the pushback. And I like that you felt that you were learning something, but it didn't feel like vegetables. That's our goal. That's definitely our goal as filmmakers. Well, tell me about, we're very honored and excited that this is Hanakuma's first project. But I'm curious, and I know that, you probably get asked this a lot, but like, what inspired you starting this company? And tell me about like, your relationship with like storytelling and why you started this amazing company.
Well, I started Hanakuma because for me, I really love challenges, and it was the first time I was kind of venturing out into that world. But also the main thing for me was just telling stories the way that I wanted to, and the way that I felt I kind of had a different perspective on things. And I thought it would be cool to be able to take control and kind of tell the stories that I wanted to tell. And for me, growing up, my dad, he used to make short films and stuff. So growing up, sometimes I'd help him like carry the mic and stuff like that. So I just always loved movies and being able to tell stories and scripts and everything like that.
So you were the boom operator.
Yeah.
I didn't know that about you. I didn't know that you had a history as a boom operator for short films. What were the short? I'm so curious now that you tell me about this. What kind of short films did you guys make?
Oh, my dad actually used to make Haitian movies. So some of them were in Creole, and actually I was in one of them. So like some people sometimes send me like clips of myself in the movie, and it's so embarrassing, but it was really good like time for me when I was younger, because I got to see all these like actors, and they were also practicing, and it was just a really cool environment.
Yeah, the creative world of making a movie, it's hard to beat it. And great that they were short. So are these movies like available around? How do I see these? Your wonderful star turn.
Honestly, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but I feel like if you YouTube it or something, it'll pop
Uh-huh.
up, but I'm not gonna tell you the name of
Okay.
it.
Well, good thing I'm a professional researcher and documentarian. I'll
Yeah.
say that. You must have been a little kid, I guess, at this when.
Yeah, I think I was maybe like 6 or 7 or something like that.
Wow. Um, I'm curious, like, how do you like when you think about Patsy's story, um, what how do you feel like you relate to it, her story personally, or like her position personally? Um, and how?
Yeah, when I was watching it, I felt like I related to her in terms of just fighting for what you believe in. But then also when I was watching it, I was in awe of how well spoken she was. For me, that's something that I've always like wanted to learn, is to like articulate myself better and feel more confident in myself. I thought it was really cool, like watching those clips of her just speaking to a ton of people, or um, I don't know. I, for me, I really admired her watching that.
Yeah, she's an incredible like speech giver.
Yeah.
I loved that clip. It was actually one of the like great finds of our production, the clip where she speaks at the 1960 Democratic National Convention.
Mhm.
Like we had a couple little clips. We didn't have the full speech, and our team like found like an actual copy of that full speech. And that was such like an electrifying moment because I think it was the first time she was on like a national stage,
Mm.
and she made this incredible, incredible call, and kind of like everyone was like, "Who's that?"
Yeah.
Uh, an undeniable, inspirational talent, that, it's interesting. She ran, it's not in the movie, but did you know she ran for president also?
No, I didn't actually.
Yeah, she ran for president later in the late 1970s. She didn't win, but yeah, she ran for president and like gave a lot of amazing speeches during
Wow,
that
that's
time.
really cool.
Yeah, it is cool to look back because I mean that's the thing that I was surprised by. I was just like, how do I not know this person?
Yeah.
You know? Did you get that feeling?
Yeah, I definitely felt that, especially knowing all she did for women and all she did for people in sports, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember the impetus for the film. I read a speech by Nancy Pelosi when Patsy Mink passed away that talked about like the story in the film of the car accident and
Mhm.
Wendy, and it's insane story if you really stop and think about it. How it
Yeah.
all came down to one vote, you know? And I just felt like, man, this is like a movie waiting to happen. So I'm glad that Wendy was up for it. I'm curious, when you think about the kinds of stories that you want to tell, what are the kinds of movies that you're most interested in making?
I would say documentaries like this, where it teaches someone while also making them, I guess, know more about their history, or not about their history, but just you're learning something and having a good time while doing it. And then also for me, I've always loved my culture, my roots. So somehow tying it back to Japan or Haiti, or um, I also love food. So I love watching like food traveling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What parts of the movie stood out to you? What did you like the best? What was most emotional for you?
I think definitely the part where the car accident happened and she made the choice to step away. I thought that that was really amazing. And of course, you kind of expect a mother to do that, but I guess just seeing the scale in which everything happened, and it kind of felt like it was down to this one point where her life could have gone in two different directions. I thought it was cool to see that from an outside perspective, and then also just watching her journey, and watching her kind of climb through the ranks, I would say, and just seeing where it kind of led her to go.
I feel like you must be able to relate to the idea of like people, being like the first or like being, and I remember when I was talking to Wendy, I asked her about that. And Wendy said that Patsy, she was happy, but she was happy to be the first, but she didn't want to be the only.
Mhm.
Do you relate to that?
Yeah, I think so for sure. I feel like, of course, there's a special feeling of being remembered that way, but I also think in life you kind of have to pave the way for the generations after you, and I think you have to open the door, and you don't want to feel like you're the first one and the only one. You want to feel like you're the first one that's going to help hundreds and like way more people after you find an easier way to accomplish what you've done.
Hmm. It's interesting because I feel like if everybody just thought that way, the world would be a little better. If everybody was just thinking about not themselves, but the next generation of people, that's like, I feel like that's like the big Patsy, the thing that I feel like she most embodied, because so many of obviously she won the fight that the movie centers around about Title IX, but like there were many fights that she took on that at the time politically there was no hope of them ever like actually turning into law. And I feel like that's something that we don't often talk about in a society that's so focused on like accomplishment and winning now, of like laying the foundation and groundwork for posterity even after your lifetime, and that seems like a very Patsy thing.
Yeah, I think so for sure. I feel like people that think that way are definitely very special, and I also feel like I would also like to learn from her daughter as well, because I feel like if you've grown up around someone that's so passionate and so giving like that, then you'll definitely have a lot of lessons to pass down as well.
Hmm. Have you what's been some feedback you've gotten from people? Do they like the movie? What do they take from it?
Yeah, actually, a lot of people have come up to me talking about the film, and I thought it was really cool because actually, when I was in Japan, there was a lot of people that I didn't know they were going to start talking to me about the film, but they were just like, oh, I started watching the film because I saw that you helped out with it, and I thought it was really amazing, and I didn't even know that stuff like this occurred in history. So I thought it was really cool that they learned a lot from it.
Did you show your dad?
Yeah, I showed my dad. My mom watched it. My sister had a whole discussion to me about it, so it was really fun.
Oh, what did your sister think?
Oh, she was really excited about it. She was like, wow, I just watched the documentary and I thought it was really cool. And I thought Patsy was so incredible and so confident and so amazing. So it was fun conversations.
Yeah. What if there's people watching this that haven't seen it yet?
Mhm.
What would you say? What would you say to them to get them to watch it? Why should they watch it?
I think one of like the great points of the documentary is that it's shorter. You know, it doesn't take up that long in your day. If you have like a spare less than an hour, you should really watch this film. Like you learn a lot. It's really engaging. It's really fun, and I think it's really important for you to learn about why this came to be.
I love that you're advocating for short documentaries. I find like I don't know about you, but like I can't make it through a 2 hour thing sometimes,
Mhm.
It's like it's nice to have a 20-minute film, the beginning, middle, and the end of it. Yeah, no, that's a good point. What else do you think people should know about Patsy Mink, or that we should talk about?
I think that they should know that she was a very courageous woman that fought for everything she believed in. And even though things didn't go her way sometimes, she kept going and she kept fighting for what she thought was right. And I think that in this generation is something that is respected a lot. And I just think that people should learn more about her.
Hmm. Do you, in terms of like the intersection between your life and career and her and Title IX, the accomplishment, do you see any interconnectivity there between what she did and what you've been able to accomplish?
I honestly don't really look at my career in a certain way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I I don't know. For me, I'm the type of person that just keeps my head down and I just keep going. So it's kind of hard for me to look at what I've done and think about it. But I just know that if I can somehow emulate her in any way, then that would be a very positive thing for me.
Yeah, I think you are. I also think about like, I wonder if like, because of Patsy and because of the passage of Title IX, like it opened a door that later created, opportunities, in women's sports. Like if not for Patsy fighting, like would it have been the same for you?
I think that's definitely a really strong conversation. And I feel like she has impacted sports for women or women in sports. Probably more than she could have ever dreamed of. And I feel like every woman that plays sports should definitely watch it and know what her name is.
It's like we all stand on her shoulders, basically,
Yeah.
Patsy's shoulders. Do you have any questions for me? Any filmmaking things?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I would ask for you, what was the process like? Because I imagine you have to like do a deep dive and learn a lot more, and there's probably a lot more things about her that you've learned that you haven't put into the film. So what's like a tiny like tidbit of information that didn't make it into the film but you thought was really interesting?
Oh, that's a good question. Honestly, the first thing, well, I mentioned she ran for president, and I was like, man, this is a really interesting story, but that didn't make it in. But another thing that comes to mind, which is like a very little thing, but I think is really sweet. So her husband, John Francis Mink, he was a geologist.
Okay.
And when I went to the Library of Congress, there's like almost 1 million photos and documents and letters and like just everything you could possibly imagine, Patsy Mink. If you're ever in DC, totally go to the Library of Congress. It's an amazing archive. Like her like certificate when she became a lawyer is there, and it's like one of the very first women who was accepted to the bar. But one of the things I found, which is so sweet, is when she was early in her marriage and she was first starting to run for politics, there was all this paperwork of like early campaign brochures and stuff. And her husband had drawn the maps for voters to show them how to get to the polls in Hawaii. And the maps were like absolutely perfect, and all the streams were documented and labeled like as you can imagine, like a geologist would. And I just thought that was such like a beautiful little document of their partnership and their story of like, this where to vote map that was like geologically accurate with all the streams and things. That was something I found that I thought was really sweet.
Really cute.
Yeah, and he just seemed like he was a great, Wendy said he was like the numbers guy, so he would like help run the campaigns. And I mean, yeah, the love story between them is an amazing story too. So that was something sweet.
That's cute. It seems like you could also have made a love story from their I don't know, it's really cute though.
Yeah, there's a lot in her life. I mean, there was also a lot more discrimination that's not in the film. All kinds of stuff that Wendy told me about, just especially early on, like if you can imagine what post Pearl Harbor, being a Japanese American, I mean, like, stories where like her father, one of the reasons we don't have that many pictures of her family when she was a little kid is because when Pearl Harbor happened and all this xenophobia and, the internment camps, etc., her dad burned all of their family's documents because he was scared that like people would learn of like their heritage. And that's why we have like so few, like the photos that we do have are in the movie. But I remember Wendy telling me about that, and there was so many things working against her, right? She was a woman. She was Asian American. She was because she was from Hawaii, and Hawaii, was a territory. People saw her as a foreigner. Like she only got into law school because as like an international student. So there was all kinds of stuff that she faced, like way more than we have in the movie, like all throughout. And even later, I mean, even Wendy, when Wendy applied to college, I think it was Stanford said no, because we've reached our quota for women.
Wow. What year was that?
I think it was in the 70s.
Okay.
And it was an interesting factor because I think it was part of what inspired Patsy to, continue the fight to end discrimination in an educational setting, and fight for Title IX. But there's a lot. I mean, there is a future film there for sure. So someday we'll get to that.
I don't know. I just feel like I learned so much from you just now. Trying to process it all. I would say, or I would ask, what was the funnest part of making the documentary for you?
I mean, obviously talking to and getting to know Wendy was amazing. She was very reluctant. I mean, she has been, because it's the 50th anniversary of Title IX. So she has been doing so many podcasts and appearances and interviews. So when I called her and I was like, hey, I want to interview you for 9 hours. She was like, oh God, like, I don't know if I could do another interview. So getting to know her and then having such a great conversation and her being so open about her story, I was so grateful, because that's really what makes the film, is Wendy telling her own story and her own mother's story. That was pretty amazing. And I also, like, I'm a nerd when it comes to like archival stuff. So spending time at the Library of Congress, going through the Patsy Mink collection at the Library of Congress, all these original documents and, like, the letters in the movie where it's like, I think you stink. And like all these, like, there was whole huge folders of like hate mail. And then there'd be huge folders of fan mail, and like from every year. And it's just like amazing to watch the paper trail, or like a whole folder of like cards of sympathy when Wendy, got in the car accident. And so like, that was just so fascinating and so amazing that it's all stored and curated in this one place, right? And that's just the Patsy Mink collection, let alone, all the lives and history and amazing stories that are stored there. So those were both really fun. And I actually got to go one day with Wendy, which was great because, bring up a photo. I don't know who any of these people are. And she'd be like, oh, that's so-and-so. And this person is that person's cousin. And so that was a lot of fun. Our film, Mink, it's the first Hanakuma film. What's next? What's next for you in the movie business? What are your projects to come? What do you want to make with Hanakuma?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's definitely really fun and exciting when you think about what's next. And I don't know, I want to put a lot of thought into it, and I also really trust the people around me. So I feel like for me, I would definitely love to do something that's based about Haiti, because I think a lot of people have perceptions about Haiti that I think aren't necessarily true, and I would love to show, a much more true side of it. So thinking about that right now.
Love that. Can't wait to see it. Are you going to be the boom operator?
I won't be the boom operator, but I would love to go and just like see how they shoot and operate around there.
Yeah. No, it's fun. Nothing better than a good documentary shoot. your stamina will come in handy.
For sure.
Well, I so appreciate you. Like I'm very happy to be on your team for this movie, and thank you for bringing it to your audience and just partnering with us to bring this to the world. I think it's such a timely story. It's something that we all need to hear about, somebody who stood up for what she believed in and got things done and just like didn't give up.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Go watch Mink. It's on YouTube and it's less than 30 minutes, so you won't take up much of your time. And me personally, I learned a lot, so I hope that you do too.